Hey, what's up guys, Mikey here. It's that time of the hour again. Time to look through all my photos in my phone. Oh, the memories. I miss seeing my friends all the time. I wish we never grew apart. But since we did grow apart, I wonder if that was because they got smarter or I got dumber. Patrick's star may not be the brightest bulb in the box, but there have been moments that have shown that he can be quite smart indeed, whether it's subtle or obvious. But it's usually a good thing when they tap into his smart side. Patrick's SmartPants is the episode where Patrick becomes a genius after falling off a cliff, and his newfound knowledge causes him to drift apart from SpongeBob. This episode aired on October 21st, 2005, and it reveals that Sandy Cheek's full first name is Sandra.
Why, thank you, Sandra.
Speaking of Sandy, this is the first time where a character was inside Sandy's tree dome, but SpongeBob wasn't inside at all. In this case, it's Patrick. It's quite rare when a character other than SpongeBob is inside the tree dome with Sandy, and SpongeBob is not there with them. It doesn't happen often, but this is the first time we see something like that. It's a pretty useless fun fact, but I wanted to say that anyway. Also, the mountain that SpongeBob and Patrick slide down is not Sand Mountain that we've seen in the past. I remember back in the day there was some speculation as to whether or not it was, because we don't see much of it, but the ride here is just as dangerous compared to the other episodes where they ride down the mountain. I didn't think it was Sand Mountain at first, but then I believed it was, but now I return to my roots and it's not the same mountain since we don't see the iconic sign and it looks so much more isolated than the actual Sand Mountain. Alright, enough of this useless fluff. I always enjoy the episodes where they play around with the concept of the exact opposite of a character's biggest personality traits. Like episode 109, Born Again Krabs from season 3, where Mr. Krabs tries to be generous and not cheap like he normally is. This episode is about Patrick being smarter than he ever was in the show before this or after this. I always had a soft spot for this episode, so let's watch it and see Patrick Einstein or Albert Starr, whatever works for you, I don't care. So the episode starts up and SpongeBob and Patrick are jellyfishing at Jellyfish Fields, making a couple silly mistakes but having a ton of fun. They run off and Patrick struggles to read a danger sign that warns about a cliff and runs right through it, plummeting down to the ground. SpongeBob pulls Patrick's head out of the ground, but luckily the rest of him was above ground. SpongeBob put Patrick's head back on, and the gears started turning, and Patrick started to become smart and uninterested in doing anything fun.
These graceful, stoic creatures of the deep.
Huh? Those are some big words, Pat.
Well, yeah, Patrick never said the word stoic before, but stoic is only 5 letters. How is that a big word? Patrick's newfound intelligence made him uninterested in jellyfishing with SpongeBob and only doing quiet, simple things or activities involving scientific research while SpongeBob wanted to do silly, fun activities. Patrick even knew the punchline to SpongeBob's joke about the difference between a guitar and a jellyfish, where you can't strum a jellyfish. That's the only difference? Patrick walked away and SpongeBob was left sad, hoping he wants to have fun soon. Later on, SpongeBob walked in on Patrick studying subspecies.
I'll show you subspecies!
I mean plankton. They decided to go visit Squidward. They walked in when he was playing a song, and Patrick recognized the song he was playing, and suggested a way for Squidward to improve the song, and Squidward was impressed by Patrick's new expertise on music. He agreed to be Squidward's musical mentor, but he kept playing very badly to the point where Patrick snapped at Squidward and left the house. SpongeBob tried to do more fun things with Patrick, including getting some grub, but Patrick kept rejecting him. Patrick, SpongeBob suggested getting something to eat. You gotta eat something at some point, dude. Patrick broke the harsh truth to Sponge Robert that they just weren't compatible anymore and said that they should just go their separate ways. SpongeBob took this very sadly and was left alone crying. Later on, he went to Sandy for advice, but he saw Patrick and Sandy bonding, so he left crying. Sandy showed Patrick a remedial equation, and after telling her how to solve the truth, he offended Sandy by saying she wasn't as smart as she thinks she is, so she made him leave. SpongeBob was very sad and lonely without Patrick. Likewise, Patrick had nobody to share his knowledge with. He and SpongeBob were looking through their respective memories, and Patrick got sentimental over them. Patrick tried using all his knowledge to solve why he and SpongeBob grew apart. Nothing he figured out was the solution, but he soon found out what he needed to do. Was SpongeBob supposed to scream at that point? SpongeBob was overjoyed that Patrick wanted to have fun again, so they did crap they used to do together, but Patrick didn't find it very fun. When SpongeBob told him how the fun went away after the accident, Patrick decided to reenact his action from that day, and he did just that, to say the least. SpongeBob pulled Patrick out of the ground, but this time he was missing his head. His head wasn't around until he bumped Patrick and his head popped up, just like me whenever I fall asleep in class. But Patrick was still smart after that fall. But he deduced that his head actually landed in a different spot, and what SpongeBob found was actually brain coral. Patrick was willing to give up all his amazing knowledge to keep his best friendship with SpongeBob. They replaced the coral with his real head, and Patrick was back to normal in no time. SpongeBob and Patrick were both overjoyed to be idiot friends again. They whip out their jellyfish nets, run into the sunset, and the episode ends. So that was Patrick's SmartPants, and I think we should be able to agree that it is, at the very least, a decent episode. I like a lot of what it does, but first, I'll talk about the parts that I do think are a tad annoying. But it's not a lot. It's mostly just the very end. As sweet as it is when they're best friends again, I feel like the laughing is a little too loud and goes on for a bit longer than it needs to. I also kind of feel the same way about the very beginning, but that's more forgivable to me since SpongeBob and Patrick do more than just stand in one spot and laugh. They run around and laugh at the start. Maybe if the ending featured more scenes of them running around and rejoicing that they're friends again, I'd like it more, but, oh well, what are you gonna do? Sigh about it. I don't really mind SpongeBob's belch talking during this shot. It is vulgar like Patrick said, but that's SpongeBob trying to lighten the mood and actually connect with Patrick. Other than that, I don't have a lot of major complaints. This episode does a lot of good. I like both times when Patrick falls off the cliff and when SpongeBob is concerned about Patrick not having a head. Plankton's cameo is one of the funniest parts of the episode, no doubt. I always thought SpongeBob's attempts to have fun with Patrick were humorous, but not absolutely hysterical or something. They're good, but not insufferable, and that's what matters the most if you ask me. I always liked Patrick's voice whenever he became a genius. He sounds so much more classy and sophisticated, which suited him following his personality change.
It is wrong to harness nature in such a barbaric manner. Who's that old chap I used to run with? I'd use a more sophisticated word like impaired.
Again, I learned about some of these big words from watching this episode for the first time as a kid. I also played violin throughout 3rd and 12th grade, and I remember learning about music terms and then going back to rewatch this episode and realized what Squidward was missing the whole time
That you add a little fortissimo.
was making the music even louder. So that was pretty neat. But my calculus classes never went into depth on what a remedial equation was, so again, blame the school, not me. The sequence of Patrick trying to have fun with SpongeBob is pretty cool. I like how they bring Squidward and Sandy into the mix, showing that they both like Patrick's new knowledge, but they get upset when Patrick insults them, realizing the normal Patrick does have his benefits over the new smart one, even if it's not apparent at first. It's good that they brought in more characters for this, instead of this just being about SpongeBob's attempts to have fun with Patrick after he became knowledgeable. I like that Squidward was impressed by how much Patrick knew about music. I wish we could have seen a bit more of Patrick and Sandy being smart together before Sandy gets mad at him. Like working on an invention together or something. That would have been really cool. I like when SpongeBob is sad when he and Patrick grow apart, but they don't comically amp up his crying, like him crying so much it floods his house. I also like when Patrick feels lonely despite how smart he is, and gets sentimental when looking at his memory book. Even if you're the smartest person in town, that doesn't mean anything if you're not having fun with your best friends. I like that arc that Smart Patrick has throughout the episode. This episode is pretty solid overall. I have a soft spot for episodes that toy around with changing something that you come to associate a character with. Patrick's normally an idiot, but this episode shows what he's like as a genius. This kind of trope subversion happens many times throughout the series, and I love whenever it happens, just because they decided to do it. Other future examples are episode 371, SpongeBob Long Pants from season 9, where SpongeBob wears a pair of pants that are just like his normal ones, but with long legs instead of short ones, which is what his pants are normally like. Or episode 312, Plankton's Good Eye from season 8, where Plankton gets a second eye while he normally has one, and we follow a personality change he goes through. Just to name a couple examples. I just like it when they change things up from the norm we're used to and play around with those ideas. And it's not just with this show, I like it with any show that has an episode like that. A good example is the Fairly OddParents episode, SmartPants, where Timmy is tired of being stupid and AJ gloating about his good grades.
Go AJ! Go AJ! Aha!
So he wishes he was the smartest kid in school and gives AJ a taste of his own medicine.
Go Timmy! Go Timmy! Go Timmy!
But also annoys his parents as a result.
Yes!
I don't really have much more to say about it. I think it's a pretty nice episode, and it plays around with subverting a trope, and I like whenever that happens. That's usually a good way to trigger my neurons in my monkey brain, because it can usually lead to some fun character interactions. Usually. Patrick SmartPants is a good episode. I like how the character dynamics are explored here, and it's another one of the brilliant storylines that Season 4 brings to the table. And what can I say? Whenever they submerge a usual trope, it can usually lead to some fun storylines and character dynamics, and it's a nice change up from the usual norm. I know the show will definitely do a lot more of that in the future, and I'm looking forward to seeing more episodes where it happens. Oh right, I forgot. I won't deny, but this frame of Squidward didn't really need to be in the episode. It's a little on the gross side, and even though it's only there for a second, I hope the next episode won't feature anything disgusting. Ow, my ear! Oh, gross, my ear! SquidBob TentaclePants is the episode where SpongeBob and Squidward end up merging together thanks to Sandy's new invention, the day before Squidward has a clarinet recital. This episode aired on November 4th, 2005, and is the first appearance of Mrs. Puff in Season 4.
Oh!
Once you notice it, you can't unnotice it. Something else I've seen talked about is that this is the first episode where Sandy's scientific personality is established.
Are you nuts?
But if you've been keeping up with the show up to this point, that's not true at all. Episode 16, Sandy's Rocket from Season 1, shows that Sandy has a rocket ship where she uses to go to the moon for some experiments she needs to do. And Kid Me always thought that she herself built the rocket. Even if she didn't, she's still going to the moon to do experiments. Episode 62, Squirrel Jokes from Season 2, blatantly states that Sandy is the smartest one in Bikini Bottom.
I mean, everybody knows you're the smartest one in Bikini Bottom.
Well, I can't argue with that.
Which implies scientist level of intelligence. I don't hate this side of Sandy by any means. I'd argue it's overhated, but I will agree that it's slightly less entertaining than her badass side from previous seasons.
I'm hotter than a hickory smoked sausage!
Now this episode is definitely a little controversial among fans, and I do understand why. I won't deny it has some gross moments, but when I was young, this stuff never fazed me. But aside from those things, I will defend this episode. I won't argue it's the best episode of the season, but there are some things here that I do enjoy, and always have. But in order for me to explain myself, we have to watch this episode first.
Rock on, freaky bro!
So the episode starts up, and Squidward is playing the clarinet on stage, and the ladies adore him. But it turns out it was all a dream. After Squidward got ready for work, he was looking forward to his clarinet recital the following night. SpongeBob got ready for work too, and came out to see Squidward, who told him about the recital. SpongeBob took a detour and went to Sandy's house, who created a new invention, a matter transporter, which can move things from one place to another instantly, and demonstrated it by sending an apple to Mrs. Puff's desk. SpongeBob was late for work, so he asked Sandy to transport him over to the Krusty Krab. If you had just waited till the end of the day to see her, you wouldn't have had to worry about being late for work. Sandy agreed and did just that. Right as Squidward stuck his arm out to open the door, SpongeBob transported in where his arm was. Sandy's machine started to malfunction, and SpongeBob and Squidward got zapped back to Sandy, fused into one. Upon realizing they were mixed up together, Squidward was terrified because he didn't want to stay stuck to SpongeBob, let alone right before his clarinet recital tomorrow night. He begged Sandy to get them separated, but she didn't know how. She tried transporting them again, but they just ended up scarring a kid named Timmy on his birthday, as well as a mom who just gave birth to a new baby boy, and proved relationship problems aren't just a problem on Earth. Unfortunately, it didn't work, so Sandy went to start on a new invention that would get them separated. Later on,
SpongeBob, hasn't anybody taught you how to ride a bike?
Well, SpongeBob knows how to ride a unicycle, but he has called it a bike before.
Gary, my bike!
After riding into the Krusty Krab, they crashed and caused a mess in the kitchen. Mr. Krabs was pissed at them, and even after he saw the shocking sight, he showed no sympathy and told them to go to work anyway. That's an awful lot of no sympathy for them being late. SpongeBob and Squidward tried to do their normal jobs, but it didn't work out well, and they ended up creating another mess. That was the last straw for Mr. Krabs, and he kicked them out until they got separated again. As they walked home, things were looking grim. They stopped by Sandy's place, who was working on her next invention, the molecular separator ray, guaranteed to separate SpongeBob and Squidward. Or your money back. But it wasn't ready, and Squidward was worried that it wouldn't be ready in time for the recital. Sandy promised to try and get it ready before he goes on, though. As SpongeBob and Squidward got home, they went into their separate houses, but the houses ended up merged together too. I still don't understand the point of that scene. The following night, the show was sold out, but Sandy didn't show up. Squidward didn't want to go out there, but SpongeBob encouraged him to go anyway, so he agreed. As the performance started, he put a cloak on to hide SpongeBob. His clarinet didn't sound very good, and the crowd didn't like it. The cloak got stuck on a flimsy nail, and SpongeBob was revealed, to everybody's shock. But since the music sounded freaky, they thought it worked since SpongeBob and Squidward merged together looked freaky too, and they all cheered. Squidward was overjoyed to experience what superstardom was like. Just then, Sandy arrived and separated them with her machine, which instantly turned off the crowd. Then when Squidward played his clarinet, the crowd was so turned off they left in disgust. Squidward was sad and desperately tried to reverse the ray, which got himself, along with SpongeBob, Patrick, Mr. Krabs, Sandy, Mrs. Puff, Pearl, and Larry, all merged together. At a therapist's office, they were all a grotesque amorphous blob, and the episode ends. Wait, where was Larry? What happened to him? So that was SquidBob TentaclePants, and I don't mind that episode. I might as well talk about the blob in the room first. Now yes, that is horrifying. But when I was a kid, I remember seeing a promo for this episode, and I could swear there was a split second of the ending shot used in the promo. So as a result, I was a little spoiled on the ending, so I don't think it terrified me as much as it did everybody else, and I didn't even lose any nights of sleep because of it. Which is ironic because that's all I do nowadays. Oh, I hate being awake. So as a result, while this shot does come to mind, it doesn't really ruin the whole episode for me. I don't know what they can do to make it worse, but that still could have happened. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about just SpongeBob and Squidward combined. This design isn't really disturbing for me either. I don't know how many other people are grossed out by just that alone, but it never bothered me. I get that it looks disturbing because of their two separate heads, but it's not graphic like in Family Guy or something, and this could easily be so much worse. They could have kept something like this teleporting blob, or any of these designs when Sandy was trying to re-teleport them. Or some of this blob substance could be added to the parts where their bodies are all mixed up, like oozing out of SpongeBob's sleeves for example. But they didn't do that, which makes this better than it could have been. I do like how they look as an alien in this shot, and I found it funny when they zapped in place of the baby boy and the mom was terrified. So yeah, seeing just SpongeBob and Squidward together never nauseated me, and I've been able to sit through this one without issues. But most of the gross moments in the show never fazed me either, but I'm not like most fans of the show to be honest. Now I'm no expert on The Simpsons, Family Guy, or South Park, but I can see either of those shows doing something like this, and I imagine it'd look a lot more vomit-inducing in any of those shows, so that just makes me thankful that this episode didn't go as far as I can imagine the others would. Alright, now with that out of the way, let's talk about Mr. Krabs. Mr. Krabs is the worst character of the episode in my opinion. When he sees the big problem, he doesn't care for their predicament nor try to help at all. He just makes them do their normal jobs rather than offering to do the register for Squidward while SpongeBob does all the cooking. That would have been nice to see. There could have been some funny, annoyed Squidward reactions over SpongeBob doing his job. Now, since Squidward has no choice but to see SpongeBob cook the Krabby Patties, and then after they can't make the first order, Mr. Krabs just kicks them out until they're separated. Mr. Krabs has sent SpongeBob home if he had some kind of problem, like in episode 13, Pickles from season 1, where SpongeBob was stressed after not remembering how to make a Krabby Patty properly, so Mr. Krabs let him go home. Or episode 31, Suds from season 1, where SpongeBob wanted to work despite being sick, but Mr. Krabs sent him home so he could get better. The most emotion he saw was his shocked reaction to seeing SpongeBob and Squidward conjoined. Like I said, the least he could do is work the register while SpongeBob does the grill, but nope. Yeah, Mr. Krabs ain't great in this episode. I wouldn't say he's the lowest point of the episode though, obviously. I liked the Krusty Krab scene when I was young because it was kind of humorous seeing SpongeBob and Squidward struggle to do their jobs, and it's also nice that he was at the clarinet recital at the end and cheered on Squidward. So there you go, Mr. Krabs isn't all bad in this episode, just mostly. And as previously stated, I don't get the point of the two houses sliding into each other.
Of course.
Maybe it would have been nicer if after this scene with Sandy, we see scenes of Squidward struggling to get ready for the recital because of how nervous he is. That would have been nice to see him crack a bit more under this stress. This scene is the definition of filler for me, and it wasn't really funny in my opinion. And now that I got that out of the way, it's time to change gears and talk about the positives. I do like Squidward's look during his dream. I like Sandy's invention in this episode. I like when SpongeBob almost made himself late for work to check out the aforementioned invention. I like that this episode expands on Squidward and Sandy's friendship a bit. This is the most they've interacted at this point in the show, and we haven't seen them talk with each other much since season 1.
What are you supposed to be?
Why, I'm a pet goldfish in a bowl.
I don't get it.
So it was nice just seeing them interact again. It shows that Squidward is willing to trust Sandy with things, especially something that's important to him. And he wasn't pissed off with her when she was late with the separator ray, just anxious about going out there being fused with SpongeBob. That's pretty nice if you ask me. I like SpongeBob's motivational speech to encourage Squidward to go out there and perform. And I love how Squidward got to experience the fame he wanted at first when they all cheered for him, even if it was short-lived. My favorite scene as a kid was when SpongeBob and Squidward rode the bike into the Krusty Krab, and this guy thought he was hallucinating.
I gotta lay off the hot sauce.
And that's still my favorite scene to this day.
Ow, SpongeBob!
It's just really funny to me, and the music track that plays, You're Nice, is another one of my all-time favorite tracks in SpongeBob, right up there with 12th Street Rag. And overall, the tone of this episode is really good. I like the shock value when Sandy sees SquidBob together for the first time. It is shocking that this happened because of her invention, after all. It seems that some elements of this one were pulled from The Fly, a 1958 science fiction horror film where a lady and a fly end up with their atoms mixed thanks to a teleportation machine. So that's interesting. I love when the tension rises when it doesn't look like Sandy will be ready in time to save Squidward before his performance. I like the science fiction horror tone this episode goes for, but it would have been nicer if it turned out funnier than it actually is. I think this episode is decent overall, but I won't deny that the shocking elements don't work for everybody. If you disregard the ending, which is admittedly hard to do, then this would definitely be better. But I get it, it's hard. And if you don't want to see it, just turn it off at the end. There you go, it's not that hard. SquidBob TentaclePants is an okay episode, I'd say. I like the tone, and there are some funny jokes and gags in this that I always loved. I won't deny there are some disgusting shots, but I think because of how much I watched the show back in the day, I became so used to everything from it that the gross out humor doesn't really bother me anymore. So I won't say this is the worst episode of the season. I don't really hate how they did the two heads on one body thing here, which does make me wonder, how bad does it look in Family Guy?
I want you to know I love you. I'm trying to get excited about it.
Okay, that explains that.